This will now be recorded.
I think the recording's ready. Are we all set? Are we all set, Don? I'm all set. Thanks. So as we come to as we bring this meeting to order, I'm going to read the preliminary the preliminary matters to get the meeting going. So I'm going to reread the what I had read at the last two meetings, and I'm going to start that now. Good evening. As a preliminary matter, we will confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. And I'd ask Nan Beecher to please call attendance.
Mr. Castellanos?
Present.
Mr. Paula? Ms. Capola? Present. Mr. Ford?
Present.
Ms. Gately? Present. Mr. Nicholson?
Present.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Present.
And Mayor McGee?
Present. And as well, I would like the staff who are on, a list of staff. If I will name them off and you can call the roll, Nan. Dr. Tutwiler, Deputy Powers, Deputy Ruggiero, Kevin McHugh, Attorney Myhouse, and School Committee Secretary Mary Jules. And Nan, I'd ask that you call the roll for those staff as well.
Dr. Tutwiler, Ms. Ruggiero, Ms. Powers, Mr. McHugh, Attorney Myhouse, and Ms. Jules.
Present.
Yeah. Present.
Okay, got them.
They're all present.
All set.
Again, this is Mayor Tom McGee, and I'd like to say good evening and thank you for joining us. This open meeting of the Lynn School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting on the city website, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded, so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment for this meeting. Again, we talked about that earlier. The school department is convening by telephone conference, video conference via the GoToMeeting platform as posted on the city's website. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are not participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other people may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything you broadcast may be captured by the recording. As we are now turning to the first item on the agenda, before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. As the chairman, I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in discussion with each other, with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call. And with that, we are ready to go in. The seventh regular meeting of Lynn School Committee will be held on this date, Thursday, April 9th, via the GoToMeeting platform, again, pursuant to Governor Baker's executive order, acting pursuant to the powers provided by Chapter 639 of the Acts of 1950 and Section 2A of Chapter 17, the Massachusetts General Laws. The meeting chambers will be closed to the public. However, the meeting will be made available to the public by adequate alternative means. that being Lynn Community Television and/or a video conferencing recording. And as we talked about earlier, this is being recorded as well. With that, I don't know that there's a flag available, but I would ask that we salute the flag together. I think there is a flag in one of these. There is a flag I see. While you have the flag, we will all stand and salute the flag together. And I ask everyone to join us in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. Thank you. And I'd ask everyone to remain standing and join me in a moment of silence in memory of Nancy Spanger, former teacher. Thank you. And with that, we'll go to the agenda. Yep. Excuse me. Who is having technical difficulties?
I am.
Okay. Was that Lorraine?
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
We can see you and we can see you.
You can see me?
We can see you. We can see you and we can hear you.
Oh, all right. I can't see you.
Okay. So we still have you and I can see you, actually can see you. And so when you, and again, as we did before, I can see, when you want to speak, you can unmute, your.
I got it. Thank you.
Your computers and I will be able to recognize you. So if everyone would mute their computers until we're ready to move forward. Thank you. Yep, I can see all of you. I can see Michael Satterwhite, John Ford. I see Michael, you have it unmuted. But at this point, do you have a question, Member Satterwhite?
I just wanted to let Donna know that we can see her now.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes. Yes.
John
Yes,
Michaels.
John. Yes, John.
It's not being I just want to inform you, the meeting is not being televised presently.
Right. And I know there's some issues with Lynn Community Cable, but it is being recorded. I know that will be made available.
Fine.
And as I stated earlier, as I stated earlier, it would be either, it will be handled either of those ways. But thank you, Attorney Myhouse. First on the agenda is we're going to new business. And I would ask Dr. Tutwiler, it's a vote to cancel April vacation. If you would like to speak to that, and let us begin discussion on that. Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler.
Gladly. Good evening, everyone. In our last meeting, I referenced the staff expectations document released to all LPS staff. Essentially, the document systematized efforts and established uniform expectations. We're settling into routines with outreach to families, an approach that is necessary and will bode well as we plan to launch the second phase of the remote learning plan. As such, the prospect of continuing to provide services and outreach through April vacation was raised and seemed considerate and sensible. We surveyed the staff and the overwhelming majority, around 87%, would prefer to continue offering services during the would-be April vacation. My strong recommendation would be to support this move. The break in continuity could prove to be detrimental. Respectfully, I ask the school committee to support a change to the calendar that would essentially cancel April vacation. And as I think it's been communicated to everyone, this would result in the school year ending on June 18th. And I know that's the next agenda item.
I see Member Satterwhite. Member Satterwhite.
Thank you. Patrick, I think that makes perfect sense. I'm assuming that if families had plans for vacation, those would have been canceled by now. Since the closure on March 13th, and I think families are just getting into the rhythm about now. And it's important to make sure that rhythm continues on. I like the fact that in the event that we have to go back to school, that it would cut it short by 4 or 5 days. And even if it didn't, it still would cut it short, meaning at that point there'd be no need for the learning enrichment that's going forward. So I appreciate you reaching out to the teachers who would be impacted by this, and attempting to reach out to the families as well. So I appreciate that, and thank you for the recommendation.
You're welcome.
Dr. Tutwiler, okay. Other members? Member Castellanos, then Member Gately.
Yeah, I just want to echo Attorney Sadaway. That's, you know, those who have been developing those set routines during the remote learning phase 1, I definitely don't see cutting the momentum in half. When you brought this to our attention, I had the opportunity to speak with teachers and some of the staff around the district. Also parents who are also, you know, parents are still learning too. They're still trying to adjust with their kids being home. So that structure has been actually resourceful. It's important to keep these kids learning as much as possible, keeping them in that solid routine until we get everything fully going. But I definitely, I do appreciate the work that's being done, and definitely the urgency is there. And just to point out the teachers and everyone who's been working on that, just amazing, tremendous. So thank you.
Most welcome.
Member Gately?
Miss Dr. Tutwiler, I just really want to thank you for taking that survey. I was not surprised with the results. I've been hearing that. Is this a good time to make a motion? Oh.
Yes, it is a good time to make a motion. A motion is on the table.
I think
I
Jerry
second.
might want
Oh,
Yeah, I can raise. I had a question, but I can raise it the next day as well. So that's fine.
to. Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Make a motion and seconded, that requires a roll call.
Ms. Cassianis?
yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yeah.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
And I don't know if Member Nicholson, you want to raise a question now, or you want to go on to the next agenda items? Sorry, I did not recognize you prior.
We can go on to the next agenda item. That's fine. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, great, thank you. Next agenda item is vote for the last day of school for the 2019-2020 school year. Dr. Tutwiler, and then we'll go to Member Nicholson after your remark.
Yeah, this essentially just calls for a bit of a look back. In previous discussions, we'd raised that DESE is essentially released the 180 school day requirement. No school district, no school is going to be in school 180 days this year. Essentially, the guidance was that every school district go to their 185th originally scheduled day. Districts who, and this is a local decision, who decide to continue offering services, continue the remote learning plans over April vacation, would back those days off of the 185th day. So for us, that would, the 185th day is June 24th. Backing the 4 days, that puts us at June 18th. Now, if I could add, toss in one other piece.
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Tutwiler, please.
Just quickly, there was an article in the Globe, might have been yesterday, the day before, about school districts and April vacation. And I mean, it's kind of the Wild West. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. There's no, sort of outliers. So just in our neck of the woods, as of today, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 who are continuing to do to work during the April vacation. But then there are a number of districts that have decided to take it off as well. So there's really each individual district is deciding what's best for their families.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. Member Nicholson?
Thank you. Yeah, so I think I just want to say thank you to the administration for the process you went through to make this decision about the break in the summer to get that input and feedback. I think it was great. I think it totally makes sense for all the reasons that you and my colleagues have mentioned. I think, and the result in just in the summer makes sense. I think one of the things that we're building as a result of this is this capability to do remote learning, and for kids to do that on their own time and their own schedule, and at their own pace. And so I hope that, and we're also know that we're going to be facing such a backlog of gaps of learning when we come back in the fall. And so I'm sure this is already in the works and in the planning, but I hope that even though we're ending the school year earlier than otherwise would have been scheduled, we're planning to continue that momentum and putting those resources out there so that students and families who have created these routines around learning remotely and learning asynchronously could continue that in the summer so that they can start to press that up as everyone will be trying to do.
All good
Other
points.
discussion?
Completely agreed. Sorry,
Other
Mayor.
discussion? No, sorry. Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. Other discussion from the members? Member Ford?
Does that require a roll call as well?
It does.
I'd like to make a motion to change the date to June 18th.
Second.
There's a motion and second. Requires a roll call?
Mr. Cassianis?
Yes.
Mr. Noel?
Yeah.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
Mayor McGee?
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Next one. Yes, Attorney Myhouse.
John
Yes, Attorney Myhouse. Yes, John.
I assume that the prior two motions were basically to delegate to the superintendent the authority to impact bargain the change in the calendar with the Lynn Teachers Union.
If that motion was on the table,
The contract.
and if that motion needs to be put back on the table with that specific language, we can take that vote again. I think that was that was the intent of the motion, and I'd ask your advice whether or not that has to be voted as it was as specifically identified.
If the chair recognizes that was the intent of the motion, that's sufficient. It goes on record.
That was the recognition of, yes, that was the chair's recognition of the motions that were on the table.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Attorney Myhouse. Next on the agenda is the graduation requirements. Again, Dr. Tutwiler.
Happy to. So as I mentioned in our meeting last week, we've been working diligently to address the needs of all students, purposely embracing the hierarchy of need, food and housing stability, mental health, and learning in that order. We're also deeply concerned about and committed to the members of the graduating class of 2020. Last week, I identified members of the senior class as being high priority recipients of a device to allow them to complete any outstanding requirements. Earlier this week, we had a thoughtful planning session with high school principals and guidance counselors exclusively focused on seniors. During the course of the planning, an obstacle in our planning emerged. There is a policy, school committee policy IFK, titled Graduation Requirements, that calls for students to earn 100 credits to graduate. Students must also earn 25 credits per year for promotion, including seniors. On the surface, this is a perfectly fine requirement. That said, there are scenarios where students have completely satisfied the core academic requirements, but do not have enough credits to meet the policy requirement to graduate. I'm asking that the school committee waive this policy this year for members of the class of 2020. Waiving the policy would not be a departure from the district core value of high expectations. All students who graduate from the Lynn Public Schools must complete the equivalent of 4 years of English, 4 years of math, four years of science, 4 years of history, minimum of 2 years of world language, so forth and so on. Waiving the policy would not impact that core requirement. Waiving the policy would allow students who have completed those core requirements, in addition to the DESE competency determination requirement, or MCAS, to graduate. Waiving the policy would also allow us to focus our attention on students who are missing core requirements. The impact of waiving the requirement this year would be profound. First and foremost, it would relieve a number of seniors of the anxiety of waiting to determine a path to attain the remaining credits. At present, the decision would positively impact approximately 130 seniors. Also, it would allow us to direct devices to a targeted group of seniors who still need to satisfy core requirements and groups of underclassmen who also have credit recovery needs. I'd like to underscore again that what is requested does not conflict with the core value of high expectations. Related, if I'm out of line here, you let me know. I would recommend a motion that states the following. Motion to waive the credit requirement and allow seniors who have met the core content requirements and state competency determination to graduate from the Lynn Public Schools. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
So there's, I see Member Satterwhite, and that is a recommendation for a motion that can be made by the committee.
Correct.
Member Satterwhite.
Patrick, I just have a couple of questions regarding that. How is this going to impact any sort of college acceptances, considering that we're going to waive requirements that are important, like you stated? I just want to make sure that it's not going to impact or make it look bad for students that have already been accepted, that their school district has now waived certain requirements to graduate. And then I'm assuming it's going to be like last year where we have over 1,000 seniors graduating. 130 seems like a large number compared to the if we have 1,000 seniors that are graduating.
So right now, and this is, a little bit of an early, maybe a little bit early to make this guess, but I have preliminary numbers from English and Classical, and they're both in the low threes. So if you put those together, you're approaching 700. And then Lynn Tech is in the mid twos. So you're right. You are approaching almost 1,000. These are students who, were we in a different scenario, were this a normal school year, would take credit recovery, would go to summer school. A number of these students are in LEAP currently. Waiving this requirement, and actually I had the autonomy to do this as a principal in a previous district. I did it all the time. It does not impact a student's college attractiveness or attractiveness to a college. It would not impact a college acceptance. What I was stating in the outset here is that these students have satisfied all of the core requirements. Essentially what you're waiving, and they're not unimportant, I don't want anybody to think that. Essentially what you're waiving is electives that students need to take to build their credits to meet that 100 credits. And so in this scenario, it just doesn't feel to me like a worthy use of their time and ours to have them on Apex and creating other experiences to close that gap. These are students who passed the MCAS. They've met all their math, science, English, all their core content requirements. They're ready to go.
So during this time, they would typically be doing that credit recovery, but we don't have the ability to do so. So that makes sense. Thank you.
Not for all of them. That's correct. And I also want to just be clear, credit recovery is not a viable option for every student, having nothing to do with internet connection or devices. Our English learners struggle mightily on that platform. It is not an appropriate platform for that group of students. So we'd be looking to create an entirely different approach for that group of students.
Thank you.
Member Ford?
Yeah, I'd like to agree with that motion to suspend to suspend the credit requirement for kids that have completed their core courses. I think in the case of the pandemic, we've disrupted the lives of our seniors quite a bit enough, and they've given up a lot in their senior year. And I think to just hold it over their head just for an elective, I think it's time that we do something on our part to make it a little easier.
Second.
Is there other member Gately? And then member Castellanos. There's a motion on the floor, but there's discussion on the motion.
Okay.
Is there discussion on the motion, member Castellanos? Member Nicholson, or are we ready to do the motion? Member Nicholson.
I just had a quick question. Okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, member Nicholson. Oh, go ahead, Brian, and then member Nicholson.
Sorry, I was having some technical issues. No, I want to echo member Ford. Yeah, it's 130 seniors, and that definitely will relieve their anxiety. I think right now there's so much up in the air, and that if they clear DESE's requirement with MCAS, and I don't see holding that over their heads. And it's definitely this is new territory. There's still lessons learned from these experiences. I think a lot of these folks, a lot of students out there are really learning what kind of mental endurance and mental toughness they have. It's a lot of resiliency being born from this experience. I've met some really strong and passionate students who've been able to step up, and definitely I have kids that are in that demographic, and I just really say thank you on the behalf of the children that I get to work with. So definitely, I support that.
And thank you. Bear with me. I think member Gately, you wanted to speak, and then member Nicholson.
I just wanted to agree with Patrick on this. As long as their MCAS have been passed, they have their core requirements, and these are elective based. It's like, I think living through a pandemic is enough extra elective stuff to live through. So I just want to say that. I'm going to say whenever it's second.
Okay, thank you, member Gately. Member Nicholson.
Thank you. Yeah, I strongly support this. I think the only question I had, I was just curious, do you have a sense, because I think the numbers that you shared are really helpful to think about the scope of it. Do you have a sense of the numbers of students that are within striking distance of getting the credits they need on the core courses to be able to graduate, and they're just need to get them, are trying to figure out how to get them remotely, like how big that universe is?
So right now, and we just extrapolated this number just in recent days. I don't have that information right now, but rest assured, like that is an important number for us to know, because we're going to be, our next step with the device distribution is to identify those students and get those devices in their hands. The students for whom Apex is an appropriate path to complete that core requirement. And I should also say that super mindful, as I mentioned before, of the groups of students for whom Apex is inappropriate. And we're working on other, whether it's a capstone project or English, a writing exercise, something else that is reflects our core value of high expectations and is substantive to get those students to the finish line as well.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you, coming up with ideas about that. So that's terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to say I strongly support this as well. I think it's really the right direction to go. And just a quick question, or maybe it's just a reflection on what's happening. Dr. Tutwiler, as you said, you've been able to do this in the past as a principal. I'm anticipating that many communities are facing the same decisions with the same kind of exact situation we're talking about, and we'll be making the same decisions both in state and I'm anticipating across the country. I know the one question, and you answered it clearly, related to what it would be, and it was a legitimately important question. Would it impact their ability on getting into schools? And I think you answered that clearly. We're dealing with the same issue that probably the whole country's dealing with. So just maybe it's not even just a point for reflection, but again, I strongly agree with the recommendation and the motion that's been suggested. Dr. Tutwiler?
Yeah, just quickly to that point, one thing that I'm more than happy to do, and I'll circle back to the guidance counselors on this, is pin a general letter that students can put in their file that explains the decision that was made. So if there is, and I do not predict this in any way, shape, or form, but if there is any adverse effect or any questions down the line, students can pull that letter out and say, actually, this explains what was done. So I can certainly do that as well.
Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. And I know Member Gately was ready to second the motion.
I second.
We have a second. Requires a roll call.
Ms. Cassianis?
Yes.
Ms. Capola?
Yeah.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Gately?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholson?
Yes.
Mr. Satterwhite?
Yes.
And Mayor McGee?
Yes. And the final thing, thank you. The final thing on the agenda tonight is discussion of the impact of coronavirus on the school department. And again, I know this is probably a weekly update and related to many things going on. But Dr. Tutwiler, if you would be willing to step in, and then we could lead a discussion if members want to discuss as well.
Gladly, if I may, I'll give a brief update, and I'm happy to answer any questions or respond to any concerns that folks might have. Lynn Public Schools Professional Family continues to work hard to meet the needs of students and families. Since last week, we officially launched School Dojo, the elementary level contact platform. We've also completed the setup and commenced the onboarding process for Jupiter, the contact platform for secondary schools. Both platforms are following a simple three-step process: data load and setup, staff training, and then family training. We've chosen to proceed with these platforms because of user accessibility. Both platforms can be accessed via phone, and the user in both platforms can elect the language the information appears. The feedback from the early adopters, Harrington, okay. I see your text, Mary. Maybe we'll circle back to that. The feedback from the early adopters, Harrington and Shoemaker for Class Dojo and Classical for Jupiter, is quite strong. Last week, I provided a detailed account of phase 2 of the remote learning plan. In short, we intend to proceed with interdisciplinary projects anchored in common themes district-wide. The work will feature the themes of community, adaptations, and reflection. The grade 3 team, whose job it is to assemble a prototype, began last week. They've already created a framework. This week, we assembled the middle and high school teams. They're using that framework to begin work on their respective levels. In short, we are very much on our way to a substantive plan that will carry us from April 27th to the end of the school year, should the governor choose to go that direction. Work continues on devices for students. Last week, I shared the plan that will reflect equity and urgency. By equity, I mean providing devices for students who would otherwise be unable to access enrichment activities or resources. Related, the plan involves getting devices to students on IEPs. By urgency, I mean students who have an urgent need to complete academic requirements. Again, those examples would be students, now seniors, who have core requirements that need to be completed, our early college students taking AP classes, so forth and so on. The IT department is already working diligently to prepare devices for home use. Further, the special ed and secondary teams are identifying those in need and preparing lists and a plan for distribution. Here again, we are very much on our way to executing this plan. 2 quick but important updates. Today, 7,600 meals were distributed for approximately 1,900 individuals. Here, as predicted, we're definitely seeing an uptick with meals. I just want to inform you that we are being thoughtful about physical distancing during the meal operation. Signs were posted and individuals were assigned to remind families to maintain 6 feet between them. I had a conversation with Kevin Richardson, who is managing this operation late this afternoon, and he said it worked like a charm. And there's so much muscle memory among families. Everybody knows that they've got to stay 6 feet apart. So that was not a problem for us at all today. Last week, and I think it was Member Castellanos, raised a question about distributing physical books to families. Sheila O'Neill was able to leverage a donation of $2,400 for books from First Book. We will determine the next steps in partnership with her, including how to distribute them while abiding the guidance around shelter in place and physical distance. More on that in short order. Last but certainly not least, 2 of the most thankless jobs in a school district are the deputy superintendent and the business manager. Quickly, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the deputy superintendents, Kim Powers and Deborah Giro, and the business manager, Kevin McHugh. These are 3 people with whom I interface multiple times daily, God bless them. At this point, all of the plans that are being carried out, both with learning and logistical plans, and all of the operational plans are led in large part by these 3 people. They're working behind the scenes, but I submit to you, they're working extremely hard behind the scenes, and much of the fruit of their labor results in the activities that I just described. I just wanted to offer them a public thanks for their work. That is all.
Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. And I'd just like to make a couple comments, and then we can go to the members. There's great news. I want to thank Sheila O'Neill. I know she's listening in on the meeting, and the teachers union are coming up. That's great news to see that those dollars are available. And I know Member Castellanos had brought it up at the last meeting, so that's really good news. And making those books available, and in these times where really staying home is keeping people safe and staying home. And I've said this, if we, a lot of people are asking, how can we support our funders and healthcare providers? It's by staying home and limiting the spread of this terrible virus and keeping the flattening the curve, which everybody I think has understood what that means. But so during this time, we're asking everyone to stay home. I want to thank the administration and Dr. Tutwiler and the deputies and all of the people that are on this call, and the teachers and the administrators who are working to ensure that the students have access to work at home, meals. Well, that's an amazing number today. And to reflect on 7,000 meals, that means the food for 3 days over the weekend where won't be available tomorrow. So getting families that need the food, making sure it's available for them for the next few days, running into Easter. So it's a challenging time for all of us, but in so many ways, everybody is stepping up in a big effort to make a difference in our community. And I just want to say this about Lynn, the city of Lynn, and all of those that are part of this great school system that we all work hard to make the best in the state. That in really challenging times, and I've lived in Lynn all my life, the people in Lynn step up in the worst of times. It brings out the best of what this community is all about. And in challenging times, people step up in this community, and that's what's happening every day. And I just wanted to make that comment because we're here on a school committee meeting, but we're really dealing with a lot of bigger challenges that we face together as families, as a community, and we're stepping up to make a difference. And I want to thank everybody that's a part of that, because it really is special to see it all happening here in the city of Lynn. So with that, if there are any comments or other, Member Satterwhite.
Thank you, Mayor. Patrick, I just have a question. Obviously, with the teachers, they have a strong ally of having Sheila O'Neill in their corner. I want to make sure that Is our Family Resource Center still staffed? Are families able to communicate with anyone during this pandemic to get clarity or have their questions answered? Have you seen an uptick or an increase in calls to the center?
Do you mean the Parent Information Center?
Yes.
So, yeah, the primary function there is student registrations, which at this time, because that requires an in-person event, we can't do it. We're exploring an online registration function, but that's going to take some time. So the number of the members who work in that department, particularly the ones who are Spanish speaking, we're actually asking to support with outreach for translations for teachers or for other staff members who are reaching out to homes. That's their primary function right now. Any questions about registration would go directly to Dave Hegan, who is the director of the Parent Information Center. But most of that contact has been via email.
And for the other part of the question, do you see an increase of people attempting to reach the central office for questions or any of that stuff? Or do you think with the teachers reaching out to the families, that's helping ease that?
Yeah. So thankfully, people aren't shy about emailing me when they have a question or a concern. And I mean that sincerely, because that's, as I mentioned to one member earlier this week, that's how I kind of get a sense for how people are experiencing our work with them during the cancellation. It has been pretty quiet here. I have to tell you, there are not a lot of phone calls here. Say again? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said something.
Little technical difficulty there, Doctor. That's all.
That's okay. Your suggestion that would be due in part to the outreach being done by the schools, by teachers, by social workers, by special ed teachers, I think is spot on. I mean, that would be that would make a lot of sense because they're able to answer a lot of questions, whether it's about how do I, get a meal for my kid? How do I access those lunches? Or, what strategies should I be leveraging for my child academically when they're at home? So there wouldn't necessarily be a need to reach out to central office. The only feedback that I've been hearing directly here, either through people or directly to me, is about the device distribution. Some concern about that. And then some feedback about the, how do I say this, sort of lack of diversity in some of the academic activities, meaning, some students are finding it not all that interesting. And so we're just asking families to bear with us while we plan and prepare that phase 2. But a lot of that is mitigated by outreach by the teachers. So, okay, like you're finding that not so interesting. Here are 3 or 4 other things that you can do. So the outreach is really, really key in all of this.
Thank you, Dr. Tutwiler. Member Ford?
Yeah, just quickly, I'd like to echo the kudos given out to Kevin, Deb, and Kim. I know my 2 daughters tell me how hard they're working, so I know there's somebody pushing them.
That's me. They push themselves.
This may be very premature, but if we do go the rest of the year with no school, is there thoughts given to potentially going into the summer with maybe some extended learning so that there's not that additional gap of time between June and September? It would have to be voted on, I'm sure, by the teachers.
Yeah, I mean that idea has been bounced around a bit. I mean, as you might imagine, the planning for right now is like really all consuming. But certainly the idea of, okay, what are steps 2 and 3 after 1 is complete with respect to trying to address the learning loss. And summer is definitely been raised. There's just so much uncertainty around when we can actually start inviting students and families back in. I go back to what Member Nicholson said earlier. Is there thought or a plan around a summer remote learning plan? That's something that certainly we're going to have more conversations about.
Thank you.
Member Castellanos?
So I want to echo everyone on that one. Thank you all the way. I don't know how many times I can say thank you, but there's so much gratitude out there. I have a question about, this might be a little bit too early, but graduation ceremonies, like the from elementary and up. I have had so many constituents concerned and reaching out about what that looks like. What the plan, are we planning something for the summer? Are we looking for, what are some of the things that we're working on for that?
Gladly. So, just as I was responding to Member Ford, it's so hard to make a plan when when everything is so uncertain, right? So each passing week, something changes, it gets worse. Then you hear news that actually the curve is starting to flatten in different places. Right now, our thought is to really make sure that we're handling the now as best we can. That doesn't mean we're not looking ahead. As a matter of fact, I had a conference call today with a purveyor of live stream events. I will tell you right now that it is massively expensive. To the tune of 5 digits for one school. And so that doesn't mean that it can't be done, but we're starting to put feelers out to think about ways that we can celebrate the students, all of our students who absolutely deserve to be celebrated. Ideally, we would get to a point where the governor says, large convenings are allowed this summer, and then we postpone graduation until late June, early July, maybe even early August. That would certainly be, and all graduations, that would certainly be a plausible thing. But I wouldn't want to put a plan out there for families and say, this is what we're doing, and then have to take that back, several weeks later when they say, actually, we're not doing that. So our thought right now, again, to really make sure that we're grounded in getting students and families settled now, learning, tending to their mental health needs, food and housing stability, and then starting to line up potential plans for those sort of really important events in students' lives.
Thank you, Dr. Peck.
Anytime.
Thank you. Member Gately?
Well, Patrick, or Dr. Tutwiler, one question I have is, I know that we got computers, and I'm hearing that a lot of the computers will be going to some of the students that have taken the AP test. That's coming up in May. So, Deb, maybe you can address this. I don't know which one. One other thing is, I have been in touch with elementary teachers and secondary ed teachers, and they are informing me of all the hard work you two deputies are doing, putting in Jupiter, implementing the dojo for the elementary schools, reaching out. They're feeling relieved that they could get in touch with some of their students, maybe not all of them. That's another question, Dr. Tutwiler. How can we, those students that we don't get in touch with, how can we get in touch with them just to make sure they're safe, they're doing all right? And I just wanted to echo you to thank the deputies Ruggiero, and Powers, Kevin McHugh for helping get all that, the computers, and Sheila for, I know you're on there, we won't know more, but for first book. Anyways, those two questions, Patrick and Deb.
Yeah. Member Ruggiero, I think you, Dr. Tutwiler, and then Deputy Superintendent Ruggiero. Would you like to speak, Deputy Superintendent, on that?
Okay with me taking the AP?
You got it.
Okay. So we have had lots of conversations, obviously, about the seniors that Dr. Tutwiler has already mentioned. And AP is also a hot topic for us at the high school level. We are looking to get them devices. We also are looking to usually pay half of the cost of the AP test for students who need it. Josh Mower has been in contact with me and has asked if is it possible for us to pay for the entire cost for the students who need it. And Kim Powers and I have had conversations about the titles funding and adding additional funding so that we can pay for the entire cost of the AP tests for these students. So these plans are in process, and we are looking to get that ready to go so that they can take those tests. In terms of the students who can't get on Jupiter or Dojo, Kim and I have worked with the principals and with the union about expectations of that teachers first are trying to contact them through telephone, that if they can't get them on Dojo or on Jupiter, they're calling to see, what is them from getting on. And if there is no way for them to get on because they don't have a device or just can't do it, that the phone call will be the way that they get in touch with them. So teachers and principals are working on that. I echo the accolades of our principal teachers. Kim and I have been working with them through this, and we have some amazing educators in the Lynn Public Schools.
Can I just add one quick thing?
Please.
Thank you, Deb. As far as devices for students who are enrolled in AP classes, we're just starting to get data back on need, and actually the need is really small. For example, at classical, there's only 3 students who need a device. So we are certainly going to accommodate those students, and when the information comes back from the other schools, we will be accommodating those students as well. But I just wanted to give you a sense for how that's looking thus far.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Member Nicholson, did you, Member Nicholson?
Thank you. So thank you for that update, and a huge thank you to the LPS team. And from everyone that's working with students and families up to the administrative team, the deputies, I'm glad they got a shout out tonight, and everybody in the district, I think, is doing really great work in these crazy times. So one question I had, we had a couple conversations about with regard to graduation and prepping for college, and I was wondering if our guidance counselors are feeling equipped for students that are having questions about college enrollment. I know it must be a really difficult situation to figure out. Deposits are going to start needing to be put down. Who knows what's going to be happening? Our guidance counselors hearing those questions about how what students who are planning to go into college this summer, this fall, what they should be doing, and do they feel like they have the adequate information to answer those questions?
Do you mean, just want to ask a clarification on the last part of the question. Do guidance counselors have information from the colleges about next steps for students who will be matriculating?
Would know what they need, how they could advise students who have those questions.
Right. So, I mean, this is going to be sort of a high-level response. In that conversation that we had with the guidance team earlier this week, they are super busy reaching out to students in their caseload. And there's no educator in the Lynn Public Schools that has a larger caseload than a guidance counselor, right? There's no teacher that has, 300-400 students in their caseload. And so they are extremely busy reaching out and extra mindful of, seniors who are planning to make that next step. All I can say definitively is that they are a very talented group. They know this process, and in those conversations, I can only assume that they're, providing some comfort and some guidance for students who are planning to make the next steps in terms of what they should be doing and what they should expect. I think that there is a lot of uncertainty right now about what the fall is going to look like, and whether or not, students who've already, been accepted and made plans to go to school, what that, sort of late summer, early fall scenario is going to look like. I don't think the guidance counselors have answers for that either. But I know that they're actively reaching out to their college contacts and trying to get as much information as possible and sharing it with students.
Yeah, no, and thank you. I totally hear that, and it's part of why I asked that they have such a huge caseload, because it seems like they might be a group that the district, just to be cognizant that to be giving those support so that they're, because they're probably dealing with these difficult questions. Another question I had, you had mentioned a couple of times in sort of meeting the hierarchy of needs, what we're doing around housing, and obviously it's hard to learn at home if you have housing instability, and it's a public health issue as well, and even more so now what's going on right now. Can you talk a little bit about what the district is doing around housing stability?
Yeah, so most of that is done through our partners, right? Whether it's the Haven Project, Youth Harbors, we just sort of onboarded this year. We are still keeping those contacts alive, still through Carolyn Troy, the Executive Director of Social Emotional Learning, making sure that information is still being exchanged and students are still receiving supports from those partner agencies. There's not much necessarily that the district can do directly in terms of housing, other than to connect students with those partner agencies, those partner resources. So we just wanted to make sure that that was front of mind and a piece of our planning and outreach, and sort of communicating that directly to you as well, let you know that that is something that we are absolutely concerned about and still working on with our partner agencies.
Got it. And I would say that situation is changing so much. I think, and the state is looking at it. Our legislative delegation is doing some great work on supporting people. I think it might be helpful. I can maybe pass along some resources. One of the things we talked about before, right? Getting information to families, because as the housing rules change and laws change, which they're doing now because of the emergency, that would be good information for the families to know, particularly the families that are coming to see us at the Grab and Go type program. The last question I had is, it touches on a couple of things we talked tonight. Like you mentioned that you haven't gotten a whole lot of necessarily people reaching out to you with specific feedback. And, I've moved my classes online. I teach at the law school and I'm teaching online. And one of the really hard parts about teaching online is that you're not in a room with people, so it is hard to get the feedback. It's hard to know what students are learning. It's hard to be able to take things in the direction will reach them. Are teachers finding that the online platforms and the reach out that they're doing, they're able to get that kind of feedback of whether students are engaging with the material the way that they'd like to be? How is that going?
So that's actually that's a very good question. I will say, as many have said, and maybe you yourself, now that you're an educator, technology is wonderful. These sort of platforms are wonderful and a really effective stopgap, but nothing can replace the magic that happens in a classroom with a group of people interacting and learning together. And so this is very, very different. We've not collected broadly feedback from teachers about that question, the extent to which they're able to gather information about students' progress, things of that nature. That would be a good question to ask. My only worry in asking that question is that I'm not sure that we could do a lot differently to improve that. Right. So right now, our modus operandi is around outreach, making sure that families understand or know where the resources are, giving some help with strategies if that is a question or concern, and then generally sort of interacting with students around the work that they're doing. I don't know, that there's systematic data being collected about, how students are progressing. But it's a good question. It's something for us to think about.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's all we have on the agenda. Dr. Tutwiler, do you have any other communications to make, or have you completed what you need to submit to the committee?
I have none other than to say I hope everyone has a lovely holiday weekend.
That's the same. That's the same for me to everyone else as well, and to all those that are watching. Open for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion made. A second. All those in favor, aye. Opposed,
Aye.
no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Happy holiday, everyone. Thank you very much. Be safe and healthy.
Everybody.
Yes.